It's a great day in our country. Thanks to the Republican Party, America is back, and we're excited about it. I talked to the president twice this morning already. He's having a big celebration for the first 100 days in Michigan, as Chairwoman McClain noted, and he's excited about all of that and everything that we're all doing together. We had a big meeting of the Republican conference this morning, and they're all excited. They were all home for the 2-week district work period, and they were moving around their districts and talking with their constituents and getting lots of pats on the back. It's a great time for the country, and you can sense our optimism about all that. It's been noted a couple times here, but 100 days ago, not far from where we're standing right now, President Trump made his historic return to the presidency. He made a lot of promises, and as Whip Emmer noted, the 4 words that best describe this administration so far is promises made, promises kept. We've recounted among this group many times, 77 million Americans delivered President Trump a landslide victory. We had our highest popular vote total ever as House Republicans, 74.8 million, and we got a mandate to do exactly what we're doing right now. We have not wasted a moment. President Trump has accomplished more in the first 100 days than most presidents do in their entire careers, their entire tenures. The Atlantic, right? I don't know if there's an Atlantic reporter here this morning, but that's not President Trump's, they're not a fan of him, right? Yesterday they described him this way, quote, "He is the most consequential American leader of the 21st century." And that's an understatement. President Trump has, here's a list, removed men from women's sports, ended DEI in the federal government and the U.S. military, expanded oil and gas extraction to lower prices, taken steps to end unfair trade practices, secured trillions of dollars in new investments in American manufacturing, deported criminal illegal aliens, stood up for religious liberty and rooted out anti-Christian bias, combated virulent anti-Semitism on college campuses. The list goes on and on and on. That's just barely scratching the surface. That's in 100 days. We're just getting started, and that's one of the reasons that we're so excited. Nearly every public opinion survey found that voters in the last election were most concerned about 2 things. This is just one metric for consideration: inflation and the wide open border and the crisis that created. Look at this. On just these 2 issues in 100 days, illegal crossings are at an all-time low, as Congressman Downing noted, and inflation is falling rapidly. President Biden often said that he had exhausted his executive authority. He told me that we needed new laws. He told me this many times himself. We had to stop the border crisis, but Congress has to act. I pleaded with President Biden, do your job, use your executive authority. He claimed he didn't have it. But as President Trump has just demonstrated, all we needed was a new president. We needed real leadership. We didn't need new laws. The Trump administration has stopped illegal border crossings. Congressman Downing said it well, 99.9% success rate. The border crisis is solved. More than 100,000 illegal aliens and gang members have been deported, and that makes Americans safer. They feel more secure again. Groups of migrants are actually stopping their journeys, and they are turning around. You know why? Because we've got a new sheriff in town. Due to President Trump's border policies, we now know again that deterrence works. On inflation, President Trump promised to rapidly drive down prices and make American goods affordable again. The Consumer Price Index beat expectations, actually dropped 0.1% in March. That is the first time that has happened since COVID, okay? Inflation is cooling. Energy prices are down, as we all know. Trillions of dollars in U.S. investments have been secured by the Trump administration. And again, we're just getting started. President Trump built the greatest economy in the history of the world in the first Trump administration. And we know that he can do it again, and we're going to help. And that's what we're engaged in. People are excited all around this country. We set fundraising records in the first quarter. We gave all the numbers out to the members this morning. I raised $32.2 million in the first quarter. It's an all-time record for a Republican speaker in a midterm. I'm not taking personal credit for that. I'm saying this is an all-team effort. Every House Republican is out working. Their sleeves are rolled up. They're working around the clock. We're setting fundraising records. The vulnerable Republicans from the swing districts and the vulnerable Democrat swing districts, it's the Patriots and the frontliners, okay? The Patriots outraised Democrats 2-1. They almost doubled what Democrats raised, and they have almost double the amount of cash on hand right now. That's an indication of where the American people's sentiment is. They see that Republicans are delivering and Democrats are in disarray. While we're working to build on President Trump's successes and codify his agenda into law, the Democrats just still don't get it. I mean, they just keep demonstrating they don't get it. More than 100 days into the 119th Congress, and the contrast could not be clearer. Everybody said, recounted some of this today, but they don't have any message. They don't have a clear leader. They don't have a clear vision. They don't know what to do. Their platform has been repudiated, and they're turning on themselves. You know, the vice chair of the DNC is going to spend tens of millions to take down his own incumbents. That shows you where they are. They've resorted to cursing and shouting and outrageous political stunts. Their approval ratings are in the low 20s. Their most vulnerable members got outraised 2-1, as I mentioned, and it just goes on and on. Two polls I just want to highlight, and then we'll go to your questions. There was a poll that came out I think a little over a month ago. It's Quinnipiac. And I think it's the most telling poll of the first 100 days of this Congress. But I got the graphic in front of me. It was Politico published it. Lots of people talked about it. The headline says, Democrats face historic discontent with the base. Now, what they did was they polled Democrats and their approval of their own party and Republicans' approval of their own party. I mentioned this before, but Democrats are underwater 9%. They have a net negative 9% approval rating in their party, whereas Republicans in Congress are enjoying a 69% approval rating, okay? So that chart is stark. It's the largest chasm between the two parties in history. It's the highest marks we've ever gotten and the lowest they've ever gotten. It tells you where they are. This morning, CNN has a new poll, getting you a nod right there on the front row, right? Republicans' view of GOP leadership, 78% approve, thank you, CNN, 21% disapprove, all right? Democrats' view of Democrat leadership, 42% approve, 57% disapprove. Stark contrast between the two. And one of the most baffling political displays that we've ever seen, congressional Democrats used their district work period to fly to El Salvador and provide comfort to a wife-beating MS-13 gang member who entered the U.S. illegally. I mean, it was a shameful performance, and I hope their constituents do not forget it. We won't. And we reflect on the first 100 days of the Trump administration. It's very clear which party is fighting for the American people, for a stronger and safer and more prosperous America, as Leader Scalise just said. We're happy to be here, and we're happy today. You can probably tell. Take your questions. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. On the subject of polls about the first 100 days of President Trump's administration were released a few days ago, and he has the lowest approval rating of any president in the last 80 years, according to the Washington Post, ABC News, and Ipsos, I believe. Other polls suggest similarly low numbers. How do you interpret those numbers, and is that not a sign that your conference, your party, your leader need to be changing course given those low record ratings?
No, look, there's always in any new administration, it's a roller coaster, right? When you come in and you make dramatic change, which is what he did, he's delivering on the promises made. There's some bumps along the road. We're changing everything. As we said, when President Trump was running, I told him and we told our own voters he could be the most consequential president of the modern era. Now the media all of you are acknowledging that is true. By extension, we can be the most consequential Congress as well, because we quite literally have to fix every area of public policy. The last 4 years was an absolute unmitigated disaster, and we got to fix it all. So when you're doing that, it's disruptive in a way, and in the early initial people, they have an emotional reaction sometimes for the big changes, but what they're seeing and what the real polling is showing is that they understand that we're headed somewhere. This is out of the gates, all these big achievements that we just recounted, and I said we're just getting started. The reconciliation bill is the big chunk of this. The vehicle through which we will deliver the America First agenda is this big, beautiful bill, which is why we call it that. The president's approval rating is better than it was in 2017 when he got started, right? Because people trust him. The thing about President Trump is he's had an administration. This is not a new thing. People remember. It's hard to remember. It seems like it was 20 years ago. But right before COVID, we had the greatest economy in the history of the world. There's been a little question and concern about, the rocky start, some of the stock market, some of the tariff policy and all that. But right now, even today, people are beginning to see the dust settle on that. They understand there was a master strategy behind this, and they're seeing the results. We're going to have 100 countries, by some accounts, and maybe higher, renegotiate their trade policies with America because of what President Trump did. He's the only leader bold enough to have done that. And that's going to be a net positive, of course, for all the American people. It's going to be more fair for us. We trust the executive to do that. We trust this executive to do that. And President Trump has had some great achievements. So, look, polling goes up and down. We all talk about it, pros and cons. But at the end of the day, we're going to deliver on these results, and the American people are going to reward us for it. Yeah.
Two of your members, Lee Stefanik and Mike Lawler, are both considering runs for governor of New York. One seat in particular, Congressman Lawler's seat, may be one of the most competitive in the country. They can't do both. They can't run for governor and Congress. Will you have conversations with them about what works best for your conference, and have you started having those conversations yet?
I have lots of conversations. I love them both. They're two of my favorite people and my most trusted colleagues, and they're both super talented, which is why they get talked about for doing other things. We have lots of look. We've got a very talented group here. We have lots of House Republicans who are being courted to run for Senate or governor or do something big. I mean, my preference is that they all stay here with me. Right? We get the job done. But I don't begrudge anybody for having other opportunities, and we ultimately support them in whatever they do. But are we having conversations? We are, yeah, and that's all I'm going to say about it. But I ultimately, look, I support my friends and colleagues. These are more than colleagues; they're friends, and I want all of my friends to do well and go as high as they can, be of their highest and best use to the country. So we'll see how it shakes out.
Mr. Speaker Johnson, do you plan on meeting with governors to advise them on how they might restructure their budgets if you're reforming SNAP and Medicaid? Kathy Hochul is working on the New York budget.
I'm not sure Kathy Hochul and I are going to sit down and talk about New York's budget. But I will just say this. We're going to be good stewards of the taxpayers' resources, okay? Do not believe the hype. Do not believe the lies the Democrat Party has said. We had their ads taken down, okay? They were running ads around the country and in swing districts trying to convince people that Republicans were going to gut Medicaid. It's just simply not true, and that's why their ads and billboards had to come down. We sent them a cease and desist letter because we pointed out they were lying. By the way, the Democrat leaders in Washington have zero credibility with the American people. Remember, they tried to tell us for the last 4 years that Joe Biden was an exceptionally talented, brilliant, on-point leader, okay? They don't have any credibility on any of this. We're going to prove the opposite. The committee markups, as Leader Scalise noted, we have 7 committees marking up components of the big, beautiful bill this week. We have 4 others next week. That third week that we return, the Budget Committee will merge all that together into the one big, beautiful bill, and you will see the results. We are going to preserve the programs. We're not gutting Medicaid. We're going to reduce fraud, waste, and abuse, which every single American should be applauding. The Democrats should as well, but they're not allowing themselves to do it. And we're going to make sure it works better. We're going to preserve the program, not cut it. It's exactly the opposite of what the Democrats are saying. So the states will adjust to all these things, and we will make sure that the people who need these benefits and rely upon them are protected. Okay, that's the whole thing. Yeah.
Apologies for a wonky tax question. One of the big concerns for some of our investors and Bloomberg readers is the tax treatment of carried interest. The president wants to change that. What are your views on that?
I've listened to the discussion, a very thoughtful discussion back and forth amongst interested parties, and I'm not going to forecast where that comes. I mean, I know. Look, I'll say this about our Ways and Means Republicans: they have put in, I mean, literally scores of hours down in the basement with the whiteboards, gaming out the very ideas and making sure that we make the right choices. You'll see a lot. That markup will be very telling on that. But they've come to a consensus. I'm not going to get out in front of them before that's discussed and released in committee. But we've heard from interest groups around the country, and we want to do right by them. I think. At the end of the day, I think what's going to be great about this legislation, the reason it's going to be so consequential, the reason it's going to be the biggest legislation, I think, in many decades that Congress has passed, is because not only are we going to give everybody a tax break, right? They're not going to have the largest tax increase in U.S. history at the end of this year. It's going to help hardworking families. It's going to be turbo boost to the economy, because I think this will send a message of stability to the markets, the bond market, the stock market, investors, job creators, entrepreneurs, that they have their tax rates permanent and solidified. They know they can plan accordingly, and that people have more money in their pocket to spend on their own families and their own needs and obligations. That's going to be good for everybody. And I think when it comes to this, I think all boats are going to rise again. That was the net result in the first Trump administration, the greatest economy in the history of the world, because we did thoughtful tax policy and we did real regulatory reform. Right now, as Congressman Downing said, both those things are on steroids. And you're going to see this result in spades, and people are going to see it and feel it. And by the way, they're going to feel it before the midterm election in 2026. So that's another big thing. Last one.
You inserted a provision in a rule to block efforts to target Trump on tariffs. And now you've done the same to prevent resolutions of inquiry, including this probe into Pete Hegseth, his use of Signal. Why are you using the rules of the House to effectively protect Trump rather than let the House work its will?
No, we're using the rules of the House to prevent political hijinks and political stunts, and that's what the Democrats have. As I mentioned, no leader, no vision, no platform. All they have is obstruction. They're trying to target. They showed us over the last 4 years, the last 8 years. They used lawfare. They used conspiracy theories, all these political weapons to just go after the president and make his life miserable. That's not what the American people voted for. That's not what they deserve. We can do better. So we're preventing this nonsensical waste of our time. We don't have time to waste. We got to, as I mentioned, we got to fix every.
Tariffs are easy. It's a bipartisan
But
effort.
as we've discussed many times in this room, the executive branch has the constitutional and appropriate legal authority to address unfair trade practices with other countries. That's exactly what President has been doing and is doing, and the results, I think, are going to be obvious at the end of this. We have to give them the runway. This is not a separation of powers concern at all. Congress has a role to play, but so does the executive. And I think everything they've done thus far has been entirely lawful and appropriate, and that's what our policies reflect. So we're going to continue to do that, and I think the American people are going to see the result at the end, and they're going to be quite satisfied by all this. So we got to move. Thank you.
Can you give a quick timeline on reconciliation?
Yeah, I'll just say this: we're sticking to our plan. We had a Big Six meeting yesterday with Secretary Bessent and Kevin Hassett at NEC. Senator Crapo, who's the finance chair over there, Leader Thune, I, and Jason Smith, Ways and Means chair. And we had White House folks there as well. And what we discussed was the timeline. As the Treasury Secretary Bessent has said a few times, he gave us credit for moving this so aggressively on this calendar. I'm really glad that we did, because we got to deliver this in economic relief to the American people quickly. We got to codify all this. We are on track to pass the bill out of the House, as we've said from the very beginning, and get it over to the next stage by Memorial Day. Now, I don't know how long the Senate's going to take to do their piece, but I was very encouraged after the meeting yesterday, frankly. Leader Thune and Senator Crapo are on point. The Senate Republicans have been working very hard together. We got almost a year head start on them on this process, so that explains the sequence of events. But we're going to get it done by Memorial Day. Senate over there, they take a few weeks to work through that. We merge this together, we get it to the president's desk quickly for signature. The Secretary Bessent said yesterday, a big celebration by July 4th. I hope it happens much sooner than that. And we're going to keep pressing aggressively in the House to make sure that happens. Thank you.
And a debt limit.
Information. Truth. Is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.